What is up, and welcome to another TISM Talk. This is episode number 19, calling it The Mental Game, Autism, and Focus in Competitive Racing. So I just felt like it was just the right time. I just finished a race, and definitely was a tough one mentally because it was wet and muddy, and I'm not used to wet and muddy. So it's definitely a mental struggle for me the whole time. It's always a pleasure to race with all the people that I like. The person in front of me now is Max. He's a little young dude, and he's on a 150cc Husqvarna. And yeah, he just handled the mud really well that day. We ended up fighting first lap, and then I just had just a bad moment. So you'll see. This is actually, you'll be some of the first people to see the race, not in its entirety. Only the subscribers to my Facebook channel get to see that for the next week or so. Anyways, after a week of the subscribers having access to it, I give access to the rest of the people. Just kind of like a thanks for supporting me for, giving me $1 a month. It's kind of cool, so really appreciate it, and that's how I show it. Anyways, let's get to the TISM Talk, so to speak. So I'm going to go ahead and put the questions, because I have questions and I'll answer them. I'll put them on the screen. So question number 1 is, can you explain what hyperfocus is and how it affects your performance when you're on a bike or on the bike? So hyperfocus it's something that I believe people with ADD as well have. It makes it so that you are extremely focused on one particular thing. That's kind of like the most people would say, like, you're in the zone or whatever. It's kind of like being in the zone, except for if you're really interested in something, an autistic person can be in the zone for forever, essentially. It's not just like a passing thing. It goes and goes and goes. So on the bike, it's really nice for me because everything else kind of seems to fade away. I'm not really concerned with whether I said the wrong thing to somebody. I'm not really thinking, because a lot of times I'll be thinking about a conversation that I had with somebody a week ago. None of that exists when you're riding because, you got that focus. And I think it's the same way for a lot of people. So definitely the way it affects my performance on the bike is that it can be very beneficial, especially if things are going well and I don't have to, I'm not struggling, I'm not focusing on the wrong thing. Now I can accidentally end up focusing on the wrong stuff, but for the most part, hyperfocus is definitely a helpful thing to have while riding. And I'm down. First crash of the day. All right, question number 2. How do you handle distractions during a race, especially when things get unpredictable or chaotic? Yeah, that plays into what I was talking about previously with hyperfocus. Distractions, they come in all different shapes and sizes. It could be something as little as, today you can see was super muddy. And I'm not really good in the mud because I have this bad habit of not being super smooth on the throttle. And on a dirt bike, or probably in a car, whenever it's slick or slippery, you really need to be really smooth on the throttle. And I can't do it. Right now I'm struggling to push up this hill because that is first place and second place also doing it. And all I need to do right now is outpush them to get to double pass. So that's why I'm doing that instead of going back down. But I do definitely get it done, and I established the lead pretty early on. Anyways, back to how do you handle distractions during a race? I actually listen to music in my helmet. That helps a lot, and I don't know why other people don't, to be perfectly honest. It's a simple intercom system that you have hooked up to your phone. I know a lot of people like to hear the sound of their engine and they think that music will make it so you can't do that, but you can still hear your engine and everyone else is around you. You just have music. So I actually have a specific playlist that I listen to, and I guarantee if you put on that playlist or those songs, even without a bike, my heart rate probably goes up because I know it's game time, and red is like, it's like go time. So that helps a lot. But when things do get unpredictable, like this race, and I'm not able to use the skills that I have, and I start to get frustrated, and I start to, how do I say it? It does start to compound. It's like when you make one mistake, it's not a big deal, but when you make two mistakes, now it starts to become noticeable, and they don't fade away as quickly as I think for some other people. Like, if you make a mistake, you're just like, okay, move on, next thing. Well, they stick with me, and they still stick with me, and I'll hold on to those things for a really long time, some weeks, depending, sometimes longer than that, maybe months. So in the scope of a race, which is usually about 2 hours, if I have a bunch of mistakes, like a muddy race like this is going to force, it definitely starts to add, and it starts to weigh on me. And when things get unpredictable and chaotic, they stack up even further. And the best way to handle those distractions is focus on the little things. Focus on your body position. Focus on the fundamentals. Focus on just every little thing that you can, because it's still there in the back of your mind. You're still fighting. But if you can focus on the core components of just riding well, it helps a lot. So that's how I handle that. Okay, so you can see I have a good lead at this point. I'm feeling pretty good. Number 3, do you ever experience mental fatigue from staying so focused during a race? If so, how do you manage that? Yeah, definitely mental fatigue. I'd say you can train physically and be fit and not get tired. And I think honestly, after your race, even one like this, I'm not physically tired, but I am very mentally tired. And it's even to the point where I'd have a trouble sleeping that night and wake up early. Like, my whole mental game is exhausted, because you do have to be so focused. I mean, you hit a rock the wrong way, or a wet log, or a hole or something, and you crash. So it's just super important that you stay focused, and luckily I can. But have I ever had mental fatigue problems? Yes. I sometimes compete in, I don't know if they do them anymore. I don't believe that they do this year. They stopped. I used to compete in what were called Ironman hair scrambles. They were 4 to 6 hours long. Now, you can take that in any interval you want. You don't have to do them all in one chunk, but I do, because I'm crazy. Stop for fuel, get some food and water, and you can go. After about an hour and a half of really truly focusing, even about 2 hours, you are kind of in an autopilot mode. You're not necessarily paying attention the way you should, and it gets a little scary. I would say the best option is to slow down, but that doesn't really work, because you're so used to processing the information at a specific speed that the slower you go, you're still processing it ahead of time, and that kind of makes it worse. So this race wasn't an extra long race, but this race required a lot more mental focus due to the slipperiness. I could not give full throttle. I could not go when I wanted to go. I could not brake hard when I wanted to brake hard. I couldn't figure out what body position worked, just because I don't train in mud very often. I try to. Every chance I get, I'm out there in the mud. But single track and mud, I'd have to travel a couple, maybe an hour or two, in order to experience this. So it's not something that I do very often. Tricky. So how do I manage it? The best way I can say to manage it is just, if you've trained hard enough, if you've really instilled the memory, the muscle memory, not the mental memory, your body knows what to do. It knows how to react when the bike gets a little sideways. It knows how to move itself forward when you're accelerating, how to move back when you're braking. That's the way that I prepare to deal with mental strain, is just repetition, to the point where I'm actually not even thinking about the movements that I make. Now, that does take a lot of time, but that's the best way to do it. And that's pretty much for every sport or activity. This race isn't exactly like my best example of my riding style, but I still stood up. I still stayed in attack position. I still focused on having my elbows up. All those things that I really, really try to hammer home all the time, whether it's rain or shine, they still came out, and it really helped. Even though it was a tough race for me, I still believe I did pretty well. I was still in the fight the whole time. Even though I think I came in 5th place, I was like 5 seconds off of 4th. I crashed in the last corner because I was trying to pass for 4th and ended up slipping out. But any time in this race, if anyone had a moment and I didn't, I could have caught them. And the mud is kind of just something that I didn't understand, so my body really wasn't prepared for it. But how to handle too long did not read for number 3, mental fatigue. How do I manage it? Repetition. I just manage it by making it so much ingrained in me that I don't actually even think about what I'm doing. A dry race, a race on rocks, a race that's technical, I'm not even thinking about when I'm clutching. I'm not thinking about that kind of stuff. It just happens naturally. Okay, question number 4. What role does routine play in your pre-race preparation? How does it help you get into the right mindset before hitting the track? Yeah, so I noticed this the other day. I went out for a ride without some of my gear. I think I didn't put my knee pads on, and it felt weird. Like, I felt as if I didn't have, like I wasn't fully prepared. You know, like if you leave the house and you're missing your wallet or something, and you're like, what am I missing? That's what it felt like. So I really have to get all of my gear on, and it has to be on just right. It helps a lot. Get the bike warmed up, helmet on, goggles gotta feel right. Everything has to just be right. I wear specific gloves. I like those gloves. And then, of course, I get the music going. And then really there's a moment right before I ride. It doesn't necessarily have to be on the line, the starting line. It doesn't have to be on the track. Just I sit down on the bike and I kind of like just take a breath. And now it's time to ride dirt bike. It's not time to do other things. Now it's time to ride the dirt bike. So that all is really important to me. And it clears your mind, and it tells your body, hey, it's time to do that thing that we know how to do. The more prepared you are, the less weird it feels when you're sitting on the line. My first couple of races, it felt really weird. I felt like I was forgetting something, like I didn't do something, and I didn't train enough. But now that I put in a lot of hours, that moment when before the gate drops or whatever, they use a rubber band here, but it's the gate drops, it doesn't feel weird anymore because I've done all that work to get my mind right, to have all my gear on. Everything feels right. The bike feels good. And yeah, so that really does help a lot. Okay. Number 5. Many athletes use visualization as a mental preparation tool. Do you use it? And how does it help you during the race? Of course I do. That was one of the hardest things for me when I did the motocross race. I did well. I came in 3rd overall, but the hardest thing for me was that I didn't get that. I'm used to having a really good amount of practice on the day or right the day before, and I didn't have enough mental memory to visualize the whole course, and that was tough for me. But I can't visualize the whole course in a hare scramble either. But what I do is I make a mental note of the technical sections, the difficult ones. I look at all the different lines in my head. I try and make mental notes of which ones to use when. For example, if I really desperately need to make a pass and it's worth taking the risk, there was a really big jump through a really sketchy section. there was no point taking it, so I never did because the likelihood of crashing was pretty high. But yeah, goggles off. But so through all of the technical sections, I have a list of lines to take and when to take them. And yeah, typically I do visualize that. I visualize it before I go to sleep, and I visualize it while I'm on the line. I visualize it while I'm racing. Going down this hill that I'm going down currently, I know what's coming up next, so I know what to expect for that. Visualization is, I can't help but do it. I mean, I do it even after the race to see what I could have done differently. Yeah, that's definitely a big part of racing, and I'd say just general athletics. I don't think that's an only a racing thing. Number 6. Okay, racing comes with a lot of pressure and stress. How do you deal with the competitive pressure while staying focused on your performance? I kind of feel like they force you, the pressure forces you to focus. I don't know, it's not a good answer. How do I deal with the stress in competitive? Well, I'm not really thinking about the stress, because obviously I want to be competitive. I go out there, I'm not saying, oh, I don't care if I'll say it out loud, oh, I just want to have fun. But truth is, obviously I want to win every race I go to. Otherwise I wouldn't go to a race, I would just go to rides. But the stress of it is more something that happens before the event, I would say. You feel the stress before, especially the closer you get to it, the more difficult it is. I felt more stress going to Meg's Brat Clinic than I did going to this race, mostly because I didn't know what to expect. I know what to expect in a race. They're gonna drop the gate, you're gonna go as hard and as fast as you can until someone basically comes out and says, okay, stop, you run out of time. I get that, I like that. There is some stress involved when I have expectations. Like, for example, if I compete wearing my Osos Negros jersey, I want to win for them because they're such good guys. And I was wearing that jersey, and I want to do well. And at the same time, I do understand that I'm not a professional athlete. Like, I hold myself to a pretty high standard, but I don't consider myself. It's not like if I lose, or if I don't finish, or if I have a bad day, or even if I come in second or third, it doesn't affect the food that goes on the table. So for me, the stress is very different than it would be if you were a professional racer or athlete. But me wanting to do well and wanting to be competitive, that's why I pick classes that I am slightly outgunned in, because I want to be better. I want to improve. So instead of racing a novice class or something like that, I pick the class above, because if I'm winning in a class every race I go to, in my mind I need to be going up, because I want to be pushing myself, because of that stress of having somebody slightly better than you. It definitely does improve your riding, and it makes you want to try harder. But really, once I get out there and I get that focus and it's time to go, I'm not feeling stressed out at all. I think, honestly, being on the bike or on the track or whatever it is that you do, being out there, it's like one of the least stressful things you can do. But the moments before are very hard and stressful. And how do I deal with them? I poorly. Most of the time, I deal with them very poorly. But what I try to do is focus on, again, I talked about this earlier, but focus on the little things. Focus on line choice, and then visualize. If you're feeling really stressed out before a race, just go over the course. Go over the technical sections. How are you going to handle it? When are you going to pick this line? When are you going to pick that line? When is it worth taking the risk to go on the big jump? Is it worth it at all? So you want to basically go from I'm feeling stressed to I'm feeling like I'm working through problems. That helps a lot, and at least for me. Everybody's different, though. Okay, so number 7. Lastly, what advice would you give to other riders, especially those on the autism spectrum who might be struggling with the mental side of racing? Yeah, that's tough. It's tough because atypical neurotypical, doesn't matter. Everyone will eventually have a mental struggle, whether that means they are debating whether they should continue in their sport or whether they should try a different, maybe go to motocross or try something else, or perhaps they're just struggling because they feel like they've hit a plateau. We all get there. We all feel that way. I'm going to focus more on the people on the autism spectrum. I think that it'll probably work for both. If you love it, if you love what it is that you're doing, like I love racing, I love riding, remind yourself of that, stop trying to be the best, because no one is going to be the best forever. Even if you're a world champion, eventually you won't be. So it's an unattainable goal, but what is attainable is the love and the fun that you get from doing it. Remind yourself of why you do it. Remind yourself of what it is that you love about it, and maybe take some time and stop being competitive. Maybe take some time and focus on having fun. Focus on doing those things that you love to do. If you love trials, try trials. If you love motocross, do motocross. If you just love working on the bike, take a couple of days and just work on the bike. I think if you're struggling mentally, you need to take a moment and remember why you got into it in the first place. For me, I don't know, there's something deep down. I love the puzzle solving of it. I love the fact that it's a physical and a mental puzzle all to be solved at once. And I actually don't love the speed so much. Like, I love going fast, but it isn't like my main passion that I think about when I think about racing. It's actually more along the lines of, can I do things that are hard to walk? Like, can I do a trail that is difficult to walk but on my bike? Can I take this motorcycle anywhere? And that feels really cool to be able to say, yeah, I'm pretty confident that I can do that. And I love it. I love that feeling you get when you learn a new thing and it works and you can just do it over and over and over again. It's a pretty great feeling. And then, even though I feel confident in my skills, I still have days and moments where I can't do those things that I so easily think that I can. And it's just part of it. It's all good. Just remember that it's all about that thing that you love, not necessarily about being the best. Also, no one's going to be harder on yourself than you are. That's a good thing. But sometimes, if you think about it, you might be being harder on yourself than you would ever be on anyone else, and it's not really fair. So try to have fun. Try to remember why you're there. Yeah, it's the best advice I've got for you. That's pretty much it for the TISM talk. I didn't want to make it super long. If you want to watch the whole race right now, go on my Facebook channel. It's like $1 for a month to subscribe. That'd be really awesome. You support me, and just gives me validation, and also gives you early access to all my long videos. So that's really cool. Also, you can hang out in the subscriber group, which includes me and a mechanic who knows a lot about this stuff. It's just a bunch of passionate people that are really super excited to talk about dirt bikes. So consider that if you want to watch all my stuff a week early. Obviously it's really cool. It's only $1. I made it the cheapest I could possibly be. Mostly just did it because I thought it'd be interesting to see how many people were curious about it. So so far it's not many. But it's okay, I don't mind. Anyways, thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and I'm about to lose the lead that I worked so hard for. Yep. Race was going really well right up until this point.